Hello everybody and welcome back to the Audi A6 Widebody project by Stealthbuilt and Kimmel Fabrication Studio. I'm Sam Kimmel and I am working on the rear bumper today. So we kind of decided that we wanted to test out a few different designs for the rear diffuser. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to cut up a bunch of pieces of cardboard, glue them on in different variations, and we're going to see what we like the best. So as always, we are going to post this up on Instagram and TikTok and kind of let everybody vote on the bits that they like, and then we'll go back through and kind of assess what we built, stand back and look at it for a day or two and decide if we like it. I thought it might be fun to add in one of these center tail lights. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but you see them on a lot of race cars and F1 cars, as well as some of the cars in the DTM series have a similar light. So I'm making a little bit of a mount, and then I'm going to kind of test different spots on the bumper that I think that this would look good. So right now you can see I'm trimming out this cardboard, and what I'm trying to do is make like a flush mount for this, and then I'll trim out the rest of the piece kind of to fit more of the shape to fit into the bumper. As always, when I'm working with cardboard, I like to make everything a little bit bigger than it needs to be, and then I can trim it back so you're not stuck with something that ends up being too small. And so you can see I started with a big piece of cardboard and we've narrowed it down to this little flap here that I've glued on, and I'm kind of testing some different ideas here. So you're going to see me glue up some stuff, and you know, some of it I'll take back off, some of it will end up staying on there, but it gives you kind of a good idea of, you know, how you can make something quick with cardboard. Stand back and look at it, decide if you like it, and if you do, then you can either go into, you know, making it out of, you know, a wood or a fiberglass, carbon fiber, any other material. Can go right over the top of that cardboard if you want with fiberglass, and that's what we're going to do on this. So once I get all of this fitted up, I'm going to fill in all the little pieces so I can stand back and look at it and kind of make sure that the design is what I'm thinking I like, and then once I decide on that, we can go into the next phase. So while I was back here messing around with this back bumper area, I remembered that I'd really only put like two probably layers of fiberglass, and that's made it pretty weak. So since I know I'm gonna have to do a bunch of body work to this, I want the fiberglass to be a little bit stronger. Now this isn't the final part that'll stay on the car, but it is important when we're doing body work that the fiberglass underneath is strong enough to support that body work and it doesn't move around. So what I did was I took all those little diffuser blades back off, and I'm going to remove everything that's unnecessary, and then I'm just going to add a couple of layers of fiberglass to everything back here. So right now I'm glassing in the little third tail light thing, and then I'm going to go back through and re-glass the entire back part of the bumper and the lower part of what would be the diffuser. I've had a lot of people ask me this question, so I thought this would be the perfect time to bring it up. People always want to know, why do I have the sheet of cardboard there on the floor that I'm wetting out the fiberglass before I put it up? You know, why don't I just put the fiberglass mat, you know, on the body part and get it wet with resin while it's back there? And I'll tell you the exact reason. A lot of the time when you're working on a vertical surface or even a surface that's upside down, you know, something that you have to stick up to the bottom, like, you know, I have to do under this diffuser, it's very hard to get resin to come off of your brush and go vertical, go upward. So a lot of the time it's easier to wet out that part when it's on the floor, you know, on a horizontal surface. You can dump the resin right on. You're not trying to push resin up, you know, against gravity. When you try to do that, a lot of the time it just ends up dripping all over you and you make a, you know, a huge mess. So I like to work with smaller pieces that I can wet out, you know, down on the floor or down on a table, and then take those pieces and transfer those to the part. So just like always, I stood back and I looked at it, and I didn't like that little piece that I had installed above the taillight. So I went ahead and just cut it out of there with an air saw, and now I'm sanding everything back and getting it smooth, getting it ready for a little bit more glass work. So what you're going to see now is a perfect example of what I was talking about with putting fiberglass on a vertical surface. I decided I was going to do a little bit of a shortcut and make this giant piece of fiberglass that I could slap up there in one big piece. And as you'll see here in a second, it didn't work out because the weight of that fiberglass and putting it all up there at once, it just wasn't happening. Gravity was not on my side here, and so I removed it and I took a razor knife and cut it into smaller strips that I could apply a lot easier. And I just had to do that in a couple of pieces. And you know, honestly, I knew better when I wetted that piece out that it probably was going to be really difficult to stick up there. But you know, I wanted to get it done, so I used a bigger piece, and it didn't work out. But luckily, you know, no harm. We just cut it up, and you know, still able to install it. You know, I will say that the rear section of this car, the lower part of that bumper, definitely not the most fun part to work on. It's definitely probably one of the most difficult sections to not only do the fiberglass, but also to get it pretty straight. And so, you know, as I'm working on this, I'm kind of thinking about all this in my head. You know, how do I want to make this? How do I want to get everything flat and straight and square? And those are sometimes the trials that come with doing something custom like this when it's still mounted to the car. So those are some of the things that we have to work through in order to get everything shaped up so that we can pull this bumper off and then take molds of it later. Now, reproducing the parts, that's pretty easy. Once you have a mold, it's no big deal, but this part right here is probably the most difficult and probably the least amount of fun. So now I'm on to adding a little bit of filler to the back bumper, and I know there's already going to be comments that say, oh my gosh, you use so much filler. You know, we used about a gallon of filler on this back bumper. Most of it will be removed while we're sanding, but it really doesn't matter since this part is more or less the buck to build the mold. I would never use this much filler in a vehicle that, you know, with this being the permanently installed part, I would never put this much filler on a car and paint it and drive it around. This is strictly just so we can get everything shaped up and then take molds of it. So I really don't care other than money. I don't care how much filler I'm using because it's not going to matter in the longevity of the part since we're going to use the part to take a mold. I know some of you are watching for entertainment, and I know some of you are watching because you're building a custom car and you're looking for ideas or, you know, ways to do different things. So if you are building a custom car, leave it down in the comments and let me know where I can check it out. I'd love to see what you guys are working on. I'd love to know what kind of cars you guys are building. So leave it down below, and I'll come check out your channel, and we'll see what you guys are up to too. Here you can see I've made these air deflectors out of 1/2-inch MDF. I shaped it up with a saw and then just came back through and knocked the edges off with a router with a roundover bit, and then just kind of sanded them up smooth. And I made 3 of them identical and then one a little bit smaller, which I put next to the exhaust pipe. And you know, I was fairly happy with this. We were headed to a car show, and it was the very first show. The car is obviously still unfinished, but we wanted to show up with the majority of the parts done on the car. And so I kind of put all this together the weekend right before this car show, and you know, I wanted to show up with a semi-finished product. And then this gave me some time to kind of put it all together, stand back and look at it once again, and decide if, you know, I liked all the things that I created or not. When working on a project like this, the big pieces come together really fast, and you know, it's easy for us to show it on a video or show it on TikTok or Instagram how quickly we build a fender flare, but it's really these little bits, you know, the final body work and the fitment of all the little, you know, gaps and cracks and creases. all those things have to be just right or the product really looks bad. And that's the stuff that really takes a lot of time. You know, we might only take half an hour to build the back bumper for the most part, but then we come back and spend, 10 hours doing all the body work to get everything fitted up just perfect. The more I worked on this back section, the more I was kind of starting to dislike the orientation of the exhaust pipes. And I know this was kind of a controversy when we were originally building it. You know, should we set them flat? Should we have them angled? How do we want those exhaust tips to look? And I was really set on having this angled look to the exhaust tips. And I think they look okay, but I'm not going for okay. I'm going for something really cool. And even after shaping the bumper in and doing all the body work around the exhaust tips, I just didn't like it, to be totally honest. And so you will see at the end of this video that we've got a semi-finished product. But I'll be honest with you, spoiler alert, I'm gonna recut this back bumper and change how the exhaust exits. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching the video and following the build. If you're not checking us out on Instagram and TikTok, check us out at StealthBuilt. And we are going to be releasing some new StealthBuilt swag. We got some hats and some other cool stuff that we'll be putting on our Etsy store, so stay tuned for that too. Check it out at StealthBuilt. I appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.